all of you. I'm Janet, the organizer of this virtual talk. Want to welcome friends from Abundance Life Baptist Church, friends of Good News Club, and some overseas friends too, like those who come from Switzerland, and one more coming from New Zealand. We know you make very special efforts to join us. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And we are here for a special reason. In Singapore, families, teens remains always a big issue. Probably not just Singapore, but maybe many parts of the world too. So today, we will look to heaven to give us wisdom, particularly in understanding a very special group of people created by God. So a little bit of info for today's sessions. The speaker will give us about a 15-minute sessions talk. You will be muted. Later, there will be a 5 minutes toilet break. Okay, we just want to take a break first. Then there will be question and answers. And I would like you to participate this Q&A very actively. This is a very safe place to ask questions. It should be a very safe place to ask questions, as in we want to learn from one another, because many of us here have connections with youth. Okay, so we'd like you to ask questions. We will also try our best to answer questions, and we trust that it will be a safe environment to answer questions. When we do Q&A, you can show your video, and you can also use the chat thing, okay, so that our speaker can engage with you meaningfully. So now let me introduce the speaker to all of you. The speaker is Chua Ka-Hui. She's married. I think her beloved husband is here too. She's a trained counselor who has worked with you for many years, 18 years actually. She is also very involved in running community workshops for parents to engage teens effectively. She is also a member of our church and our church deacon as well. She has worked with children and youth in this church over this long period of time when she was worshiping with us. Just a slice of news for you. I know this speaker, Chua Ka-Hui, when she was a youth. Can you imagine? It is my great pleasure now to welcome Chua Ka-Hui to take over. And as she takes over, recording shall start. These sessions will be recorded for special reasons. And during any other announcement towards the end, we do not need recording. So for the Q&A, for learning purposes, as well as for equipping, these sessions will be recorded. I shall hand this time now over to the speaker, Chua Ka-Hui.
I hope you are okay. I don't think I'm muted anymore. All right. A very good afternoon to all of you. And yes, so yeah, I'm Ka-Hui, and by the time Pastor finished her sharing about introduction of me, I think you can more or less count how old I am. So anyway, yeah, I'm just happy that to see all of you on, and I know some friends are here to support as well. So thank you very much. And of course, my husband last night said that I think I should support you, and therefore he's here. Yeah. So content-wise, it's not like he doesn't know, but well, I'm glad to have all of you here with me this afternoon. Okay, so along the way, if there's any questions, please feel free to post in the chat. You don't have to wait until Q&A to post your questions, but I will get to your questions pretty much towards the end of the talk or after our break. Okay, yeah. So I pretty much worked in a little bit of background. I started off in my counseling career working in secondary schools, and I worked pretty much with the 13-year-olds all the way to 16, 17-year-olds. I worked with and some students, you know, they leave secondary school a little bit later. So that's the age group I started working off with. And now for the last 8 years or so, I've been working in a junior college. So I've moved on to the older kids, the 16 to 18-year-old spectrum. for the last 8 years. Pretty much throughout the years of working with young people, I had to engage their parents quite a bit. And so some of these things, and over the 18 years I've actually worked with young people, I was just reflecting to myself, I would have seen 3 different generations of youth move through these past 18 years, meaning that, you know, I think I work with not the Gen Y, but what comes after that. Okay, the millennials was the most recent group that has just passed on to the mid-20s, and now they're actually with the group that's called Gen Z. Okay, so if you don't know these terminologies, it doesn't matter, but it's basically psychological and sociological terms we use to define the generations that we work with, and each set of them present different characteristics and different behaviors that's accountable to what they have gone through in their growing up years and the trends of their times. Okay, so we may talk a little bit about that. It may come up in my session with you, but that's not really, I didn't really specifically go into some of these things. But this afternoon, I endeavor to share with you my understanding of a teenager, and we recognizing that moving from childhood to teenage years it means a whole lot of changes for the young people that we are working with, or that you have in your house. Okay. So first and foremost, I like to just start you off on this activity. If you have a piece of paper and a pen somewhere, if you could grab onto that. Okay, I'd like you to do this, to consider your teenager or teenagers that you have at home and list down 3 things you appreciate about him or her. Very quickly, whatever comes to your mind, 3 things that you appreciate about your teenager at home. Got that? Okay, it shouldn't be too difficult, unless you've got 3 teenagers or more at home, then it may take you a little bit more time. Okay, the next question. Now, list down 3 things you think your teenager appreciates about you. So list down 3 things you think your teenager appreciates about you. Okay. Right. So I'd like to ask you, which question is more difficult for you to answer, 1 or 2? If you have your cameras on, you could just hold up your fingers. If you don't have it, then you could also type in the group chat. Which question was tougher for you to answer, 1 or 2? 1 or 2? Not getting responses in the chat. No, I'm not getting responses. Okay, never mind. All right. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm getting some responses here. Okay, I'll find it similarly. So, okay, 2. Yes. Thanks, Adontia. 2. Right. Thanks, Henry and Eileen. Okay, 1 for Josephine. Thank you. Any other responses? Which one is tougher? Question 2. Right. 2. Okay. I wonder what, thank you very much for the responses. I wonder why generally the consensus seems to be that question 2 is a little bit difficult, more difficult to answer than the first one. And I wonder why. Is it so hard to read your teen's minds, or you're not quite sure how your teenager actually looks at you? I want you to consider this. What do you imagine your child to be like when he or she is 16 years old? If you have a younger child at home now. And if your child is already near 16, then I'd like you to stretch the imagination a little bit further to 20 years old, to 21 years old. What do you imagine your child to be like when he or she is? Consider in terms of character, consider in terms of values this person holds. Consider in terms of behavior, how this person will exhibit himself or herself and behave in any kind of situations. What do you imagine your child to be like? You don't have to write. I mean, if you want to just quickly jot down a piece of paper, I won't be asking you for answers, but it's up to you. You know, something that you want to keep, you will want to keep in mind. Then I'd like you to consider, do you think your child shares this same vision as you? Do you think your child sees himself or herself the same way that you see him or her at 16 years old or at 20 years old? And how do you think your child can get there? To this vision or this level that you imagine your child to be like when he or she is at that age, how do you think your child can get there? Or what does your child need in order to get there? So this whole exercise really is about, I'd like you to consider what goals are you setting for your child. Maybe even for your older child, what goals are they setting for himself? Because the thing is, you may want to start casting some future vision of what kind of a child you would like to have at these various ages. And also invite your child to consider for himself or herself the same thing. Have a conversation about this from time to time. Because when you share a goal together, it keeps you both on the same path. And when you're working through difficulties or conflicts, this is where the goals tie you back together, keep you on the same path and the same journey together. So as parents, our need is to be needed. As teenagers, their need is to not need us. This conflict is real. We experience it daily as we help those we love become independent of us. The teenage years is when your child transits to become an adult. If you haven't thought about it, start thinking about it. It is a transition period when your child learns to leave the home and become independent. This is the period of life when your child learns more about himself or herself, what he or she can do, cannot do, what roles he or she can take on, enjoys and does not enjoy. This is the phase of exploration, where they learn the skills of becoming an adult, where they become independent. And in psychological terms, we call this process individuation. A very long word, right? Okay, so this is how you spell individuation, and that is that process of becoming an individual. And in that process of becoming an individual, they basically have to learn to leave the family and develop themselves for who they are. And so in this phase of life from age 13 to about early 20s, your child seeks to answer these three questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I headed? And behind these questions are really these needs that they are trying to meet. So these are the three needs behind these three questions. The need for self-worth, to know that they are a person of value, that they are lovable, that they're necessary to this life, and of incomprehensible worth. Regardless of what they can do, what they can achieve, that their self-worth runs deeper than that. That sense of belonging, the human emotional need to be an accepted member of a group, whether it is a family, friends, etc. People tend to have an inherent desire to be an important part of something greater than themselves. And this sense of belonging is very important to the building up of a person's sense of self. The agency of control or the sense of agency or control refers to that feeling of control over one's actions and consequences. As a teen grows to become a young adult, they would like to flex their ability to make decisions for themselves by exploring various activities to increase self-understanding. If a child is able to meet these needs well, right, and find good answers to these questions by the time they hit early adulthood, his or her identity will be well established. And he or she will have a wholesome sense of self, filled with a sense of purpose in life, and being confident of what they are able to do, and also being aware of what they are not able to do. Otherwise, your child will end up confused about him or herself. Understanding these needs of your child, how well positioned are you to help your child establish themselves in these needs? To help them seek out the answers to these questions on the left. What can you do about it? How can you help your child on this journey of discovering more about themselves? So what is your parenting style? 3 questions here for you. Consider what is your parenting style. Looking at the grid here, there's permissive, authoritative, uninvolved, authoritarian, and there are some examples in each of the quadrants to give you a sense of what we're talking about here. So if you could just look at that and then, you know, for yourself, just note down what is your parenting style. Where out of these 4 quadrants, where do you fall? Which quadrant do you fall under? You don't have to share the answer, just to give you a sense of where your parenting style is. Okay, take half a minute to do this. Okay, you found your own parenting styles? Yes? Just one type, I cannot be across quadrant, I must choose one. All right, now the next question is, what about your spouse? Okay, if you're a single parent, then you don't have to answer this. But if you're not, and you have a spouse together in this journey with you, then consider what's your spouse's parenting style. Okay, have you located both yours and your spouse's one? Okay, all right. Then, which parenting style do you think your child needs? Which style will best help your child to meet his or her needs so that he or she can uncover wholesome answers to the questions that I shared just now? Let me share a little bit more about what these parenting styles mean. Captures the essence of the 4 parenting styles. Research shows that children of authoritative parents parenting, they actually fare better than those raised in other styles. With lots of love and firm limits set, this form of parenting encourages a child to be more gritty and resilient. And this is being both tough and loving to your child. You all have heard of the phrase tough love, right? This is where it is best executed. Okay, and actually research has shown that tough love is really the best in developing your child. Parents who adopt this style are these are some of the characteristics of parents who exhibit authoritative parenting, that they're confident and calm, they regularly have fun, they will love unconditionally, that's why the love is very high. Secure in their role as parent, they celebrate and encourage their child, they're loving but also firm. They can be flexible and are prepared to listen, and they see mistakes as opportunity to learn. They're rock solid around important principles such as safety, health, trust, respect, you name it. That's your own principles that you have to be rock solid around. And they coach children to solve their own problems. You teach them to fish, not give them the fish. So that's the characteristics of authoritative parenting. With the other styles, like authoritarian parenting, where love is little, but they are high on limits, very strict on boundaries, you end up with parents that are very demanding and unsupportive. With uninvolved parenting, where there's little love and there's basically no limits at all, in other words, we call this neglectful parenting. It creates a particularly toxic emotional climate for a child to grow up in. With permissive parenting, where love is high, but limits are very flimsy and very low, then you end up with a very supportive but yet undemanding kind of a situation of a family environment, which is not doing a good service to your child, because teenagers really thrive with knowing where the boundaries are, and then within that boundaries, they are free to move within those boundaries. The boundaries keep them safe, and they need those boundaries in order to explore themselves a little bit better and to know who they are better. Okay, so that's why the high love and high limits is really the best for this stage of your life. And if you and your spouse's parenting styles are not in the same quadrant, what are some adjustments that you might want to make in your parenting styles that you could then come together to be in the same quadrant? These are some of the characteristics of children who receive the various forms of parenting and how they might turn out. Okay, so with authoritative parenting, children tend to be self-assertive, independent, friendly, cooperative, motivated, competent. With authoritarian parenting, then the children tend to be withdrawn, apathetic. For the girls, they can be shy. For boys, they can be hostile, unmotivated, and incompetent. Uninvolved parenting could have children, demonstrating these characteristics of being unmotivated, self-effacing. They might be indifferent. They could be destructive. They could be detached emotionally or socially incompetent. And for permissive parenting, the children will tend to be impulsive, dependent, undisciplined, immature, so likely to be a risk taker in the teenage years. They can be manipulative, socially competent, and self-centered. So going back to the question again, what is one thing you may need to change in your parenting style today to move towards the authoritative parenting style? So I'd like you to consider having a change in your role as your child grows older. In the early years of your child, all of us as parents, we are the ultimate caregivers. Okay, you will have been very involved in taking care of him or her, changing diapers, feeding, and making sure sleep time is regulated, and so on and so forth. Controlling and deciding on everything that your child eats, does, and and who he or she plays with. Now, the child moves to the older, as they get older, upper primary school years and secondary school years, that's like the tween to teen ages. I'd like to suggest that you move to being a coach. One who guides and encourages your children to develop his or her own strengths while continuing to instruct him or her. A coach sets goals for the child, and this could be done jointly with your child. A coach regularly reviews the goals with the child to check in on how well the child is keeping on the path to achieve these goals. And a coach looks out for teachable moments to bring a lesson home for the teenager, allowing him or her to fail in the process of reaching the goals, and then from there gain confidence and strength in his or her abilities and self-worth. That's generally what a coach does. I know while we're focusing mainly on the tween to teen age years, I'd just like to mention a little bit for those who have older teenagers who are moving into the 17, 18, 19-year-olds. And as they move into those years, like the years when they are in junior colleges or in polytechnics and preparing to get into university, you as parents continue to play an important role. Please do not let go and hands off already, they're old enough to take care of themselves. But not so much as a controlling parent, not so much as a coach. I'd like to propose to you to consider you're taking on the role of that of a mentor. And for older teenagers, a mentor is one who comes alongside to journey with your teenager. You share with them your own life experiences without imposing and according them the respect in asserting themselves to think through things for themselves. Okay? All you have to do as a mentor is really just present them the options, walk through the pros and cons with them, and then give them the handles to make decisions for themselves and build up their sense of agency and competence. So here we are at the coach level, and today I will really focus much more on coaching rather than mentoring. So if you want to talk on mentoring, we can arrange for this. Okay. So I'd like to use the letters of the word coach to give you 5 parenting tips to use. COACH. C for communicate. Communication is key to keeping and building a good relationship with your child. Actually, it's key to building a good relationship with anyone. Foremost in communication is listen. Do not talk, but listen first. Okay, so talk the urge to tell your child what to do, that he or she is doing wrong, and to correct your child's actions or to correct your child's behaviors. Every time your child talks to you, just listen. This is a very powerful move. And once your child knows you're willing to listen to him or her, he or she will be more open to share things with you. Okay, so at this point, I'd like you to say, okay, I'll give you a magic phrase. Every time your child wants to talk to you and tells you things, you're just listening, right? After you have listened, and sometimes your child is not, if your child happens not to be the very communicative type, and they like start and stop on a conversation, like, Mom, I've got something to tell you. Yeah, what is it? Never mind, I don't want to tell you already. Kind of thing. And then how do you continue the conversation? Or if they just off, Derek was really horrible in class today, and yeah, he got me so angry. And your child doesn't talk anymore. But the thing is, you're probably full of curiosity about what has happened, right? And what does your child want to tell you about Derek and what has happened in class? Use this phrase, okay, to invite conversations to move on. The phrase is, tell me more. So wherever you are, if you're with a spouse, just look at each other and just say, tell me more. Just practice it now, wherever you are. Okay. Using this phrase, tell me more, to invite your child to talk more. And actually, it's quite magical. When you say tell me more, a person feels a little bit more empowered, more accepted, more encouraged to talk. And it actually allows them to give you a little bit more information. Try that out, okay? But don't overuse it, okay? Don't like every other punctuation mark, you're like, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. And then in one whole conversation, you have like 10 tell me more. That doesn't cut it. So be creative about it. You get the idea. Tell me more could be one phrase, you know, it's like another phrase that you could use in place of that is, I'd like to hear more, or would you like to continue? Stuff like that. Okay, you get the idea. Yeah. So O stands for open mind. Keep an open mind towards your child's viewpoints. I know sometimes it's hard. When they turn teenage years, they develop all sorts of funny thinking, deviant from yours and away from very opposite of what the family may have stood for all this while. Or they may try to test your patience and so on and so forth. But just keep an open mind towards their viewpoints. Nobody likes to be interrupted. Much less be told immediately how lame or immature their thoughts are. This will be a sure way of planning up your child. You know? So listen with an open mind, and you will soon find your child willing to tell you a lot more in most place. And this allows them to feel accepted, feeding their self-worth, and also to build their sense of belonging. A for affirm and assure. Okay. So remember the three things that you have stated earlier on that you appreciate about your child. I'd like you to use those three things and tell them to your child by the end of today, before the end of today. Use that to affirm your child and assure your child what you really like about him. So remember their need for self-worth. They need to know that they are loved, regardless of what happens with them, and accepted. Not because they have achieved a lot of things in school, not because they scored number one across their form, not because they got a gold medal for their competitions or their trophies. They need to know that they are just simply loved for who they are. Just like how much, you know, that for those of us who are Christians here, we need to know that God loves us regardless. Assure your child how proud of them you are, what you like about them, and always tell that to them. Not about their achievements. These come and go. These achievements come and go. But the loving statements should be based on their character, the values that they stand for, the things that will last. C, collaborate. So work with, but not work for your child. I'll say that again. In collaboration, you work with your child, not work for your child. Working with your child empowers them to do things, take ownership for themselves, and in a safe and guided manner. This builds their sense of agency, their sense of control. So, for example, when you're discussing the annual goals with them, collaboratively discuss how both you and them and your child can work towards the same set of goals for him or her. Hold them accountable. Once plans and boundaries and limits are agreed upon, right? Hold them accountable to it. This is part of growing up. If they slip up, execute the agreed consequences with them. If they meet the goals, reward them. Involve them in the consequence building, involve them in the consequence plan. Okay, discuss with them what consequences should happen if they do not meet the agreed behavior and boundaries or limits. This builds also their sense of control, that they feel, okay, I have a sense of control over what I can, what kind of consequence I'm willing to take. And they will actually be quite fair. Don't worry about it. Okay, room for negotiation. So I've given you this coach handles, right? I'd like us to turn the focus to your child. What exactly is happening in their teenage years? I said earlier on, the teenage years is filled with changes. And this could augur adventure, excitement for your child, or it could also bring confusion and overwhelming feelings to your child. There's so many things that they're battling with, and all these are, I don't think it's exhaustive. I've just put up pretty much general stuff that they are going through in this phase of life. And for you, you also may be battling your own confusion and sadness as you bid goodbye to your child and say hello to a teenager who pretty much does not want you very much in their lives at this stage of in this phase of their lives. The changes in this phase of life do not happen sequentially. The best part is all these things happen all at once over the span of a few years, from about 11, 12 years old all the way to about 21, 22. Okay, so that's about 10 years or so. It can be a lot for any person to take. So we will look at these changes to understand what your child is experiencing. The first obvious change is the body. Physical changes may hit as early as 9 or 10 years old in our children today because of the changes in our diet and the changes in our lifestyle. But in any case, regardless when it hits them, their body changes hit them hard. And it is when it hits them, it is a lot for them to take in and adapt to. Their body changes pose a great source of stress, bringing about heightened emotions in your child. That's when their moods get labile, like it goes up and down a little bit more. They get anxious about things like, am I growing tall enough? Or maybe when they shoot up too tall and then they get worried that I'm getting too tall. Am I putting on weight, or am I too skinny and scrawny? They worry about the facial hair, about their breast sizes, about when they get their first period, and so on and so forth. So your child is likely to feel overwhelmed and confused, anxious, and sometimes embarrassed at the rapid changes. What you can do is to participate in a caring way and keep yourself informed of the changes that your child is going through in this phase. Applying the coach skills that I've talked about earlier on, in communication, talk to your child about their body changes. Share your own personal experiences, if you still remember. Help them to navigate the unknowns, okay? Prepare them ahead of time to let them know that, yeah, you can, after this, you might be expecting, you can look up for this further change, for this next change, and so on and so forth. That takes care of their anxiety about what else is to come. Also teach them about personal hygiene. Oh, this is a big thing. I mean, I work in schools. Seriously, the smells in schools is not great, especially when you work with teenagers. And a lot of them are not very aware that because of all the hormonal changes and the adjustments in their bodies are just giving out a lot of scent. And I'm using scent, not smell, in a very nice way. And they really are not very aware of it. So please do teach your children about personal hygiene, such as shaving, use of deodorants, keeping themselves clean, and so on and so forth. So respective parents, so for this part, right, the father should talk to the boys and the mom should talk to the girls. Try to keep to that, because these are just intimate changes in their bodies that they may feel shy having the opposite gender parent to talk to them. Open mind, equip yourself with knowledge, okay, about puberty by reading from trusted sources, and also be prepared to talk openly with your child about the changes he or she is experiencing. Yeah. Again, help them to keep an open mind about their opinions, about what they think about themselves, what they feel that they're going through, and engage them in that conversation. Affirm and assure. So affirm them on their looks. Very, very important. This is it is a phase of their life when they get very worried about how people judge them. Okay, and so that fear of being judged is very, very high. And it's not about you judging them. They don't really care about you judging them, but they care more about their friends judging them. So affirm them on their looks and help them to feel good about how they look without sounding fake about it. They can definitely sniff out fakeness from a mile away. So be genuine in your affirmation. Also, assure them that the discomfort they experience is normal and it will after a while. So the last thing here, collaborate. So work together on how they can look good. How can you come alongside your child to make your child feel feel good about themselves? So perhaps there can be father-son trips to the barber to get the latest haircut or the latest hair dye, if you want to. Mom and daughter shopping trips to buy skincare products to take care of the acne or new clothes to fit the growing body. And these are things that you can do together as a family and have fun together. So collaborate on these, plan for these things. Oh, like if you check out a new hairstyle and it's like, you put it to your son, Shall we go for a new hairstyle? And of course, your son wouldn't want to have the same hairstyle as you. So let's be honest about that. You may want to have your own haircut, but then go together with your son, okay, and work together on a makeover project, if that's what you want to call it. Okay, so that's on physical changes. The next thing is cognitive. Along with the physical growth, there is also an accompanying intellectual growth spurt. Now your child is able to think abstractly on issues such as loyalty, justice, fairness. The world starts to become grey for them. It's no longer a simple thing as black. With abstract thinking, they're able to see beyond and imagine various possible consequences and outcomes. They can look far into the future, and their thinking gets stretched. So they can also start future planning for themselves. They can imagine themselves in different roles and settings 10, 20 years from now on. And a lot of them will start imagining, you know, what will they be like in their adult years? What can they do? What do they want to get involved in? When they have their own families, what will their families look like? And they will start to plan their future in such a way: career, university choices, family life, and so on and so forth. So what can you do to help in this space? Yeah, a few other things first before I go into the coach part. This is also a time when they can get argumentative with you because they form their stance about values and beliefs. And they will start to question the beliefs in which they were brought up in. If you think you've done a good job in grounding them in their primary school years in terms of the family beliefs, in terms of the family religious rights and faiths and so on, be prepared and do not be surprised that in their secondary school years, in their teenage years, they start challenging you on some of these things. This is the time when they ask, why are things the way they are? Is this the religion we've been brought up with? Is the religion we have been brought up with true? How relevant is it to me in my world? And this is all a part of them flexing their mental ability and developing assertiveness. Parents, please do not take this too personally. Okay, it's not about you, it's more about them. They're trying to explore and understand their own stand in life. So welcome the questions and seek to give honest answers in a non-authoritarian manner. Don't do a top-down manner and say, because I'm your parent, you say so, then therefore it holds. That doesn't work anymore in this space of life. Instead, encourage the teenager to continue to explore these ideas. Have them read as widely, as broadly as possible. Have them talk to trusted sources, trusted adults, people that they grew up with, uncles and aunties that they honor and they respect. You know, have them talk to as many people, talk to their friends, and then bring all these views, amalgamate them, bring all these views back to you in the home setting, and then talk about it with you. You would rather that they come to you with their moral and value questions than to find out answers from Mr. Google or somewhere else. If you should condemn your teenager for asking these questions, what will your teenager do? Most likely your teenager will clam up, not talk to you about them, and be forced to go elsewhere to share his questions and find out answers from other places. So adolescents also in this stage of life often search for a role model they respect. And they may look towards seniors in school, pop stars, movie idols, political figures, etc. They're trying to figure out who they aspire or want to be in the future. So parents do spend more time with your child during this period so you can continue to have influence on them and be that positive role model for them. We'll talk about the importance of fathers in this stage of life a little bit later. Okay. It is also helpful if you have friends, for parents yourself, your friends, who share similar values as you, to be your children's mentors or coaches in this period of time. Because oftentimes, teenagers are more polite and open-minded to the views of outsiders than their parents. So engage your friends, and this helps of your friends, uncles and aunties to your children, whom they respect, as I said earlier on. Okay, so for this part, what do we do with the coach skills? Communicate. Because they think so deeply about abstract concepts, you should engage them to seek to understand their views. Insist on your to understand your views. Okay. Do not insist on your ways because you end up in a power struggle with them. Have a topic handy to bring up at the dinner table at meal times for open discussion, and do not think that you must have the final say. Always let your child have the final say. No matter whether they're right or not, just let them be the last one to end the conversation, okay, that's the final say. It makes them feel a little bit better. It makes them feel good. Generally, it doesn't make you feel good, but it allows conversations to carry on in the next meal times or the next time you're all in the car. Open your mind Keeping your mind open to your teenagers' views and perspectives will go a long way to strengthen the parent-child relationship. Do not take the comments personally, as I said earlier on. Keep calm, be objective, and look interested in what they have to say. Okay. Yeah, because sometimes teenagers really try to get under your skin, the parents' skin, by purposely taking a controversial stand, just to see how you react. They just like to see you squirm. They just like to see you get into a fix and cannot, out argue them. Sometimes teenagers are just like that. Just the emotions just takes over. The logic just retreats, and they just want to see themselves having that control over you, their parents. So don't take it personally. Just be calm, be objective, and just keep the conversation on as though you are in a business talk with a business partner kind of thing. Yeah. So use things like "that's interesting. Tell me more" to invite the conversations to keep it open, to invite more things, more sharing from your child. Affirm and assure. Affirming their views and values when it is in line with the family stand will be helpful. Affirm their efforts in thinking through an issue well and deep. So recognize that they do spend effort in thinking through an issue deeply and thoroughly when they do, and also just give them the affirmation that, oh yeah, you're right, that value is exactly what our family wants, and we stand for that. We should respect and take care of maybe the poor, the elderly, or the sick, for example. So, but also assure them that you still value their opinions and love them no less should they take a different stand from you. Remember, don't be offended by them. I know it's easier said than done, but teenagers do love the last word, as I said. Okay, so why save your pride, right? And destroy the relationship. So let them have the last word. Collaborate. You can invite your child to look more into the topics that both of you may disagree on. So if let's say you're pro-life and your child is not so pro-life, and you have that discussion about it, about abortion and things like that, then you might just want to invite your child to look deeper into it and bring it back to the table and talk about it. Likewise, for you, do your part to research into the topic as well. And in this way, family projects can be created and worked on together. Hold them accountable. You can also hold them to their word. For example, if your child expresses a strong stand, a strong support for, it believes your yes must be yes, your no must be no. Okay, then you can always use that to remind your child that this is your stand, this is what you value. Therefore, let your actions complement it, be in line with what you value. The importance of keeping to promises, and that you expect him or her to keep to the agreed time to return home after dinner, out with friends, and so on and so forth. Encourage them to live up their values, those that you approve of, and that's the things that you can hold them accountable. Moving on to another aspect of the developmental changes, my second family. You may go like, wait a minute. It's like, who's this second family? Ain't I their family? You are the first family. In the teenage years, your child will have moved on to look for a second family, not their own family later on, but this is the interim family. So in this stage of life, your child does not see the family as the main tribe that they belong to anymore. They will start building their own tribe. They will look for friends who share common interests, who share common values, common beliefs as them. Friends who accept them and like them for who they are, or like them for what they are able to do. So we call this the second family. So this is a necessary process for your child to learn dependence. Okay. So in the tween years, the 11, 12-year-olds, they will pretty much stick to the same gender group. When they move into the early teen years, the secondary school years, they will go for a large mixed group. And so no surprises, when they move into the late teen years, they will pretty much go into smaller groups or they will couple up. This is a necessary process for a child to learn independence, to meet the three needs I have highlighted earlier: the self-worth, sense of belonging, and sense of control. You can see how their sense of self-worth, belonging can be met in a group among their friends, and their sense of agency, the ability to do things for others, is also built up in this new tribe they form with other people. And that's why sometimes, I don't know whether parents here have encountered this before, that how come you all care about your friends more than you care about me? You might feel that. How come you would wake up at 6 a.m. to prepare a nice meal, or prepare a sandwich for your friend, but then you don't even prepare breakfast for me, kind of thing? Because the second family takes precedence in their lives at this point in time. Okay. Please do note, and again, don't be offended. They are not abandoning you, their family of origin. They are individuating as they begin to align their thoughts, beliefs, and values to their own experiences. They're trying to find themselves as a person. So during this period, your child may feel attraction for another person. It's very natural. The attraction can be romantic, it can be sexual, or simply just admiration. So let's look at that a little bit more. Sexuality is part of who the teenager is. Relating to the opposite gender is an ever-present reality, and most teens dream of getting married someday and have their own family. Hollywood or no Hollywood picture, okay, but they do dream of getting married and having their own family. So these are conversations I can have with my older students in school that I counsel, and sometimes we'll talk about their family, what they see their family will look like and things like that. And some of them have really put quite a lot of details to how they would like their future spouse to look like, how many children they would like to have, where they like to live, and what kind of lifestyle they like to have. So emotions and feelings can be confusing for your child. Younger teenagers will have trouble discerning between infatuation and real love. And therefore, sometimes you may find your younger teenager coming back home, looking troubled, feeling troubled, telling you that they're troubled. But because, it could be a passing infatuation rather than real love. And they might not be able to discern because the feelings are just overwhelming for them. And they feel this strong attraction towards another person, but they may not really know that, it may not be, that doesn't constitute real love. So they might mistake their hormonal reactions to mean real love. Even when they get older, understanding what love is can be confusing. What can you do to talk about it? Okay? Using the normal flow of family conversation. Let's again look at coaching skills. In communication, listen to your child talk about their friends. Do not criticize. This is definitely a no-no. Do not criticize their friends. Even if you know their friends' shortcomings, even if you can see their friends are not as great as they put them up to be, once you criticize their friends, you're cutting off your. It's very personal for them. This is their own tribe. They chose this tribe for themselves. If you're going to criticize their tribe, they will definitely take offense. So suspend your own judgment about their friends. Instead, create a safe space for your child to share about their relationships with others. Openly about dating, sexuality, marriage, and share your own experiences as well. So that even if your child doesn't start talking to you about dating, about their sexuality, about marriage, start the subject first. Start talking about it first. It's good to get it out there and establish their views and let them know your values and your views before they even venture into dating. So share your own experiences from your own teenage years. If you do remember, of course, share the positive ones. Share positively. Okay. And also you can share with them why you have chosen their mother or their father to marry and what you like about their dad and their mom and how you got together. This helps them to consider how to choose their own life partners and the meaning of special relationships. When they're feeling confused, just listen to them in a non-judgmental way. Keep an open mind to the exploration of relationships. Do not condemn their choices of boy or girlfriend, but the key is to let them know you are non-judgmental and are here to give support and advice whenever they want. Your child probably knows your stand about relationships and would seek your advice when they feel you are open to their perspectives. If not, if you already sense that you are not someone they can talk to openly about relationships and you have very strong views about it, they're probably going to hide their relationships from you and not talk to you. Affirm and assure, again, affirm your child's attractiveness. Social comparison is a very big thing, especially for younger teenagers, particularly for girls. They will tend to compare themselves with the girls in class, the girls in school, the next most popular girl in school, and so on and so forth. So affirm your child's attractiveness because social comparison can give them a lot of stress and beat down their self-esteem. It does not help when they are exposed to a lot of social media standards as well of what is pretty, what is handsome, what is attractive. So assure them that it is safe for them to share anything with you and do not do the I told you so when their relationships do not work out. Hand out tissues or bubble tea instead in those times, okay? That works better. Collaborate. Model positive relationships that you have with your own friends and colleagues and spouse. Okay, so model for your child what healthy relationships look like. Using yourself as a real life model, your child can benchmark their relationship skills against you, against yours. Yeah, and that is one of the best ways to teach your child how to handle relationships well. So be supportive of your child's outings with friends. Offer to drive them if you can, and if you have a car at home now. It's because it's a great way when you are their chauffeur. That's a great way for you to listen in on their conversations, what they talk about in the car, and get to know their friends a little bit more. Plus, their friends will see you in a very positive light. So it's a win-win situation. Holding them accountable. Teach them commitment and respect. Help them to see how their actions can affect others. So, in relating to people, your child should know should learn that to treat others respectfully. So even if they're in a sexual relationship, why they should not, if they do want to break up with someone else, with this other person, then how can your child do that in a respectful manner for the other person, and not to sort of damage the other person's self-esteem and ego in this breakup. So teach them things like that. What does, when they're committed to friends or a special someone, what does it look like? What does it mean for them? And come along with your own stories and experiences, and occasionally just check in with them on how their friendships are going. Especially if they have some special friends or some close friends or friends whom they're worried about, and just check in with your child. Like, how's that going? The last time I remember, you said you were very worried about Anne. How is she, and how are you holding up during this period of time? Even if your child just gives you grunts, like, no, nothing, it still means a lot to them. Trust me. So with all that, and I've done quite a bit of coach already. Give me about 10 more minutes and I'll finish here with a few more tips for you. Okay, and I have them in C, D, E, F. Yes. Choices and responsibilities using the V of love. I will talk about that over the next few slides. And date your child. Okay. And again, I will elaborate on that a little bit later. Let's move on to the E first. Engage other adults. I've mentioned a little bit of this earlier on. It takes a village to raise a child, and especially for a teenager too. Allow as much as possible your teen's reliance on other adults when it's appropriate. So if you know your child has got uncles and aunties in their lives whom they look up to, mentors or their coach in their schools, their sports team, their CCA teachers, their teachers in school whom they look up to, and you feel that these teachers actually share similar values as yours, then allow your team to relate to them as much as possible and to take reference from them as much as possible. Sit on the sidelines and observe, do not interrupt. So allowing your son and daughter to be part of another group that doesn't include you, and that's okay. So just learn to let go and let them interact with other adults. It's all part of growing up and helping them to craft their own sets of values, their own set of knowing who they are, of self-identity. Family meal times, very important. You may feel that, wow, once they're into teenage years, they're so busy with their own schedule. I'm also busy with my own schedule. Family meal times go. Please do not let it go. Research shows that teenagers do better in life when parents regularly keep in touch with their world. And the mealtime provides this opportunity to connect, to check in, to reinforce the culture of the family, and allows you to make sure your child will eat well as well. So for younger teenagers, make it a regular affair, maybe 5 times or even more if possible a week. For older teens, because they want time to be with their friends, go and meet their friends for dinner and so on, at least secure 1 day a week from them. So fix it early in the year, like when they're moving into the next school year, you could actually sit down, the whole family could sit down and say, okay, let's fix some ground rules that there should be some family time. Let's build it into the weekly calendar, the monthly calendar, or the annual calendar. We should have some family time together, and just secure that every Friday night or Saturday night or Sunday night is when the family sits together for dinner. That everybody comes to dinner regardless. So just block that time out. You probably need to talk a lot more with the older teenagers to get them to block it down so that they do not fix it, some other things and let it slip. All right, so as I've said, I will go back to C and D, choices and responsibilities using the V of love. What is the V of love? Okay, so LOVE, right? The V of love. Using the V of love to help you to support and collaborate with your child on his or her increasing freedom and responsibilities through their years. The V of love is this: as your child grows from 0, okay, from a very young age, you will have a lot of very set, close boundaries. You don't let your child have a lot of freedom, right? Because your child cannot handle the freedom. So it's within very, very close boundaries that you will let your child explore and learn to walk, to talk, to run, to jump. But it's all within very, very closely bounded and very tight boundaries. They don't have a lot of room away from you. They don't have a lot of room to make decisions about what they want to eat, what they want to wear, and so on and so forth. As they move up the age line and they get older, your V should actually get wider. Your boundaries should move broader apart to allow them more space to test out their choices and their responsibility. So what this looks like is this. In terms of choices, in early adolescent years, you will give them, they don't have a whole lot of choices as compared to an older teenager who's approaching adulthood. So for example, at 13 years old, you may only allow your child to choose and decide on the clothes they wear, the hairstyle they want to take on, how they want to tackle their homework, and when they want to go to bed, for example. As they grow older to late teens, you may then give them greater ability to make choices regarding whether they want to take alcohol and who they want to date or go out with, a few times when they want to come home, whether they would like to take on some holiday jobs to earn some extra cash. So these things I've just stated for the 17-year-old would not be appropriate if you give that choice to the 13-year-old to make, right? And that's where that V of love comes in. So within the boundaries that you set, you allow your child to have freedom to make choices for themselves. So you have to decide what these boundaries are and talk about these boundaries with your child. Explain to your teens why these limits are necessary and important for you. And this solicits understanding from the teenager, allows them to reason for themselves what is important. So also the other thing is to discuss with him or her what is appropriate and what is not. Seek to understand why they make the choices they do and share with them your views on what you think is appropriate and inappropriate. Then collectively agree on the limits, particularly for the older teenagers. Because oftentimes when parents move to this stage of a teenager's life, we tend to forget to set boundaries. We may not. And the teenagers will feel, it's okay, I can come back past midnight. It's okay, my parents will be asleep, but I have key. It's okay, one nap. So do be intentional about this exercise and sit them down and talk about it. And let them see and help them understand why it is important to you, and then negotiate with them what is appropriate and what is not. Okay. To teenagers, fairness is very important. So if you have two teenagers, one 17 years old, one 13 years old, fairness is important. The 17 will think back that when I was 13, I didn't get that privilege. Why does Siti or Meme get it now? So you have to be able to explain or to work it out in such a way that the fairness, the need for fairness in the teenager is met. Okay. If the teen's sense of fairness is violated, he will experience anger, which, if not dealt with by the parent, can lead to resentment towards the parent in a sense of rejection. Okay. So parents set and hold the limits. Children may make independent choices within those limits. Now, with responsibilities, the same thing. When they are younger, you don't give them as much responsibility, right? 13 years old, you may want to consider responsibilities like chores, like laundry, like rooms, taking care of cleaning their own rooms, and so on and so forth. But as they grow older, the responsibilities will probably increase. You may want them to take on more, you expect more mature behavior from them, community involvement, maybe they have to take their share of caring for the car, or even taking on a part-time job just to help out with the family, and so on and so forth. So you will want to increase the responsibilities as they grow older. And simply because they're older, they're able to take on more responsibilities and help out a lot more around the house. So do let them know that. Also, don't forget to discuss the consequence of not fulfilling their responsibility. The consequences can be collaboratively decided with your child, and they will feel ownership of the mistake when they've helped set up the consequence. So always involve your child in setting up the consequence. Do not give them the consequence after they've committed the crime, so to speak. You know, it's like, don't like last minute then say, oh, okay, since you didn't do what you agreed to do, and then I will take your handphone away from you for 24 hours. That's not going to be helpful, because you never agreed upon that consequence in the first place. Your child is going to resent it, and then you're going to end up with third world war in your house. Okay. So always talk about consequences before it happens. Tips on enforcing rules, limits, and responsibilities. There are some things here that you may want to take note of. You may feel upset when your teenager does something wrong. Do not yell. Just keep calm, because effective communication happens only when you're calm. Unconditionally loving your teen means that you have to be the bad guy sometimes. Remember the high love, high limits? Yeah, so that makes you sometimes the bad guy. Okay. Avoid long lectures. No need to nag. They know. So simply state the consequences previously agreed on, and that you expect your teen will follow through it. Respect is a two-way street. If they respect you, you respect them. So remind them about that. Keep your thoughts to yourself around other people when you're upset. Do not criticize your child in public. It absolutely shames them, and they would not like it very much. It tears their self-esteem down as well. So focus on the behavior and the act that you are displeased with, and not tear down the person. The other last tip that I just want to move into is to date your child. Dating your child is very important. Okay, one time with your child is important, and it allows you to know your child better, and to build strong relationships with them. It also allows your child to feel special and valued. So these are some tips on how to date your child. Schedule the dates ahead of time. Put aside time, maybe once a month, once every 2 months, to go on a date with your child. Everyone's schedules may get hectic, so do plan ahead and put it in your calendar. Okay, especially for older children, lock it down in your calendars early. Take turns picking activities. Allow each of you to take turns. It could be, the parent one time, the next time the child will pick activity to do. This is a great way of knowing what interests your child. So if your child says, let's go laser tag. Okay, I know you all don't like laser tag very much, but yes, since it is your child's turn to pick an activity, then go laser tag, okay, and go and play. If your child does not want to pick, then maybe you can have both of you just write down 2 or 3 activities that you want to do together or you enjoy, and put it on small slips of paper, put it into an envelope, pick an activity out each time you're going on a date. So it sets you up for a set of activities already. Have fun. Please don't keep going to dates with all your agenda in your head and okay, I must get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 done. I must have my child answer all my questions about his personal life, how he's doing at school, who is he hanging out with, and so on and so forth. Just remember to have fun. Ease up on your agendas sometimes, and just keep it casual. Enjoy the moments together and build memories. When your child is relaxed, it's probably a good time and a good chance that he or she will share openly with you in the own accord. Pick different days for each child. If you have 2 or 3 children who are already teenage years, then make time for each of them. Don't have them all parted together on the same date. Okay, group dates don't work for this. So you have a one-to-one date for each of your child. Prime them for the first date. Oh, the first date is so important. If your child has not is in the tween years, 11, 12, that's a good time to actually prime them for the first date. Have them look forward to it. Like it's a rite of passage. When you turn 13, you get to go on a date with daddy. Okay, they may like, but I don't want, it's so boring. Never mind, okay. Just tell them that, yeah, this is something special that we want to put into the family, that you get to date daddy, and daddy is going to bring you on a date when you turn 13. After a while, the excitement does build up, and they will look forward to it, because it signifies that they are transitioning from a child to a teenager. It signifies a rite of passage for them. So build that into the family culture. There's lots that you can do. So this is the point where I want to take a note about fathers. Fathers, you do play a very important role in your child's life, especially during the teenage years. Because mom tends to be around a whole lot more in our way of setting up our families, from young to all the way to maybe a child when he gets married. The mom tends to be around a whole lot more in terms of caregiving, in terms of taking care of, making sure that the child knows how to tie shoelaces, knows when to gets the drink of water as and when he or she needs, and so on and so forth. Children tend to get dismissive of their moms as they grow older. They're so comfortable with moms being the caregiver, right? They don't really listen very much and honor mom very much. And this is when the fathers can take a more active role in the development of their child. Girls will feel special when their dads date them. And this also provides the girls with a good sense of self-worth, and they will be more prudent when it comes to dating boys, because they learn to see their value through their father's eyes. And therefore, father do have a fun time dating your girls. Okay, it can be really fun. And boys like it when they hang out with their dad, because it makes them feel adult like their dad. Because usually fathers do not nag at their daily habits, but fathers can engage more in a man-to-man talk. So when you do that with your son, oh, the sons love it. They feel manly, they feel adults, they feel grown up all of a sudden, and they feel more ready to earn responsibility of the world and stuff like that. Yeah, Captain America comes into your family. So do date them, okay? And this is the power of the date, especially. So it's okay, like, it sounds more on the father than the mom. So the father has to work a little bit harder on the date. I remember actually for myself, when I was in university and I was staying in a hostel, my dad dated me for about a year. After 3 years, I was living in a hostel. I don't know where he got the idea from. Seriously, in those times, it probably is a very foreign idea. And I don't think he set it out in such a way that, I'm dating my girl intentionally. But he just basically asked me out for meals once a month on a weekend. And he'll bring me to places where it's just him and I, we just eat and we'll talk. And it's like, at first I felt really awkward because I'm not that close to my dad and we don't do a lot of HTHT, heart talks. But because it's just him and I, right? It's like, what can I do? I just have to chit chat. So we kept it casual at first. Sometimes I just share with him about what's going on in hostel life, in uni, in the days that he doesn't see me, what's happening in my life. And we do it pretty much once a month, almost a year if I remember correctly. Yeah. So that's really powerful. I mean, now looking back, right, I really appreciate it. I loved it. I look forward to it, and I enjoy my time with my dad. Some things to consider for those of you who have younger twins. You have twins in your family who have younger teenagers, and the topic of sex is always difficult to talk about. Of course, school does sex ed, and I encourage you earlier on to talk about sex as early as you can. There are some good packages of helping your child to prepare for teenage years out there, done by Family Life, which is a family division of CRU, that Christian based and all that. So they have this package called the Passport to Purity Getaway Package, and it's basically a series of 5 to 6 lessons on an audio CD that you listen as you take a road trip with your child. I know in Singapore now cannot go road trip. I mean, actually around the world also cannot go road trips. Right? So what one of my colleagues is doing this weekend, actually, even as we're talking, she's going for a staycation, and she's going to bring her 11-year-old daughter out to do this Passport to Purity and going through the lessons with her over 2 to 3 days. Amidst having fun activities, and they would go probably some, you just do fun things that the child wants to do together with mommy, but you also go through some of these lessons and to prepare your child for teenage years. It cuts both ways. There's also a package for the boys and a package for the girls. So you can look it up online. You can probably find it very easily. I've done a little bit of search on it online. You can find it. I think it's like $29 or something like that about there for the package. For the 14 to 16-year-olds, I think they recently came up with a new one that's called Passport to Identity, and it helps the young person explore who he or she is. Similarly, there's a boy and a girl version, I think, or they're put together. So you can actually look up online for some of the reviews from the parents who have used the Passport to Purity. That's been around a lot longer than Passport to Identity. Check it out. Look at some of the reviews. Generally, it's not too bad a package, it seems, but you may have to adapt it for your child. And if the content is a little bit too childish with the audio, you create your own. But you get the gist. It gives you a framework to start talking to your child about some difficult topics that you don't want to be caught by surprise later on when they go into secondary school, when they go into JC, or they go into uni kind of thing. So it's good to start the conversation going. Okay, so that's basically the tips that I have. But then the last one, and this one is the most important: take care of yourself. Parenting is not easy. Self-care is basically any action that you do to improve your own health. Give yourself permission to take a break. Support one another to stay happy and healthy, and also taking care of your spiritual, physical, psychological, and social needs will help you feel your best so you can be the best parent you can be. Make a self-care plan and then talk it out with your husband or your wife. Go on dates with each other and leave your children with someone else. Or if they're old enough, they can take care of themselves for a night, and then you just go and enjoy yourselves. It's in replenishing your own tank, your own emotional tank, that you can better take care of your children. So to summarize what I've shared today, is really focus on the process, not the outcomes. Keep the end in mind, always set the future goals, and then keep that in mind and work towards that together. Nurture the relationship, even if it's at the expense of your pride, let that go, because the relationship is the thing that lasts and is more important. Develop your child through coaching, and I've given you the 5 tips using coach as the acronym. Communicate, open mind, keep an open mind, affirm and assure, collaborate with your child, and hold them accountable. last but not least, I'd like to leave you with this poem written by a teenager. I'll give you some time to read it. Fundamentally, human needs have not changed at all. The need for love, the need for acceptance has always been there. The need to know that I am worthy has always been there. And that's what your child's birthright is. Meet those needs and you have a good relationship with them. Thank you. All right, so I'll take a 5 minutes break. Is it, Pastor? I'll hand the time back to Janet. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Friends, you may want to take a very short break and come back quickly. We will resume question and answers, which I believe it will be a very exciting time.